I renovated my parents' outdated house. I should have known better. Thanksgiving at the new house turned into a nightmare I never saw coming. I'm a successful architect, and I thought I was doing a good thing. Another drive back to my childhood home. Fall in Connecticut always hits differently, the leaves blazing orange and red, the air crisp and clean like a postcard come to life. But honestly, the scenery wasn't doing it for me this time. My stomach was twisted in knots, anticipation mixing with dread. Thanksgiving, family, yeah, you know how it goes. I'm Sarah Jenkins, by the way. I'm 36, an architect in Boston, making a decent living and finally feeling like I've got my life together. Growing up, it felt like our house was perpetually stuck in the 70s. Avocado green appliances, shag carpet that probably held more secrets than Fort Knox, the whole 9 yards. It was home, sure, but outdated. A few months back, I had this bright idea. My parents, Tom and Mary, were getting older, and the house was showing its age. I was finally in a place where I could actually do something about it. I called them up, all enthusiastic. Hey, how about I fund a full renovation? Modernize the kitchen, update the bathrooms, maybe even open up the living space. Mom was hesitant at first. Oh, honey, are you sure? That's a lot of money. But Dad? Dad was immediately on board. Well, Mary, it is getting a bit dated, and Sarah, that's incredibly generous of you. Generous, that's the word they kept using. Maybe I was being generous, or maybe I was just trying to buy my way into feeling more connected, more family. Whatever my motivations, the project began. Big mistake. Huge. See, I envisioned sleek, functional updates, open kitchen, clean lines, energy-efficient appliances. The kind of stuff I design for clients every day. I even started putting together mood boards, pulling inspiration from design magazines. I was excited to finally put my skills to use for my family. Then Mark got involved. Mark, my older brother. Picture this, perpetually unemployed, living in my parents' basement at 40, full of opinions but zero follow-through. He's charming, I'll give him that. Master manipulator, too. Suddenly, the renovation wasn't about updating the house. It was about Mark's vision of luxury living. Gold faucets, a giant jacuzzi tub in a house with barely functional plumbing, granite countertops that cost more than my first car, and Mom and Dad? They were eating it up, hook, line, and sinker. Sarah, honey, Mark has such vision. Mom chirped during one of our increasingly strained phone calls. He knows exactly what will make the house impressive. Impressive to who? The ghosts of interior decorators? I tried to push back gently at first. Mom, those gold faucets are going to clash with literally everything else we're doing. And a jacuzzi? Really? We barely use the shower as it is. Oh, Sarah, don't be so practical. Mark drawled like practical was a dirty word. This is about elevating the space, making it aspirational. Aspirational. Another word they started throwing around. Aspirational for whom? Certainly not for my parents, who mostly just wanted a comfortable, easy-to-maintain home. And definitely not for me, the one footing the bill. But my protests were met with gentle resistance from Mom and outright dismissal from Mark. Dad just kind of nodded along, happy someone else was taking charge, probably relieved to be out of the decision-making loop. So, slowly but surely, the renovation morphed into Mark's gaudy fantasy. I tried to maintain some control to steer them back towards sanity, but it was like trying to herd cats wearing blindfolds. Every phone call was an exercise in frustration. Every design choice felt like a slap in the face. I started dreading their calls, screening them, letting them go to voicemail, but I kept paying the invoices. Stupid, I know. Part of me hoped, maybe foolishly, that once it was all done, once the dust settled, we could actually enjoy the renovated house together as a family. Thanksgiving was looming. The grand reveal was planned, and I was flying in from Boston, bracing myself. Driving up to the house, I had to admit it looked different. New siding, new windows, landscaping that was actually manicured. Okay, maybe Mark had some sense of curb appeal. I took a deep breath and parked in the driveway. The second I stepped inside, I knew I was in trouble. It was loud. Not just noise loud, though there was that too. Some generic pop music thumping from hidden speakers I hadn't approved. No, it was visually loud. The foyer, once a modest, welcoming space, was now a shrine to excess. Marble tiles that screamed expensive, a chandelier that looked like it belonged in a Vegas casino, and a mirror the size of a small car. It was aggressively opulent. Mom rushed to greet me, beaming. "Sarah, welcome home. Isn't it amazing?" She gestured around with a flourish, like she was unveiling the Taj Mahal. "It's different," I said, the most diplomatic thing I could manage. Mark sauntered in, looking smug. "Different, darling sister. Transformed. Elevated. We've created a true statement." He winked like we were in on some grand joke. I forced a smile. Kitchen was even worse. The avocado green was gone, thankfully, replaced with white and gold, everywhere. White cabinets with gold handles, gold-veined marble countertops, even the faucet, yes, gold. It looked less like a kitchen and more like Liberace's bathroom. "What do you think?" Dad asked, actually looking a little nervous. He was always the quiet one, easily led. "It's bold," I said, carefully choosing my words. "Bold is good, Sarah. Bold is what people notice," Mark declared, patting me on the shoulder a little too forcefully. The rest of the day was a blur of forced cheerfulness, awkward small talk, and me trying to subtly rearrange the gold-plated knickknacks Mark had picked for the living room. Felt less like Thanksgiving and more like a performance. We were all actors in Mark's home decor drama. Thanksgiving dinner itself was predictable. The food was good, Mom always nailed the traditional stuff, but the conversation was stilted, centered mostly around Mark's pronouncements about the vision for the house, punctuated by Mom's anxious attempts to make sure everyone was impressed. It wasn't until after dinner, when we were relaxing in the newly aspirational living room, which was now freezing cold because Mark insisted on modern minimalist furniture that was beautiful to look at but terrible to sit on, that it happened. Mark was holding court as usual, rambling about some expensive art piece he wanted to source for the dining room, when Mom suddenly piped up. "Oh, Sarah, honey, there's something we wanted to talk to you about." Her tone was unnaturally bright, like she was about to announce she'd won the lottery. But I had a sinking feeling in my gut. "Okay," I said cautiously. Mom exchanged a look with Dad, who cleared his throat. "Well, you know how generous you've been with the renovation, Sarah." "Generous," Mark echoed, nodding sagely. "Yes, and we are so grateful," Mom continued, her smile a little too wide. "And we were thinking, since you've invested so much in the house, it's really become your project in a way." My stomach dropped. Where was this going? She rushed on before I could respond. "We were wondering if, well, Mark and Lisa are really cramped in the basement apartment, and with the renovation it's so much nicer now. But we were thinking maybe you wouldn't mind if they moved in." Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. I stared at her, blinking, trying to process what I had just heard. Move in. Mark and Lisa. Into my renovated childhood home. The home I was paying for. "Move in," I repeated, my voice flat. Mark jumped in, sensing my hesitation. "Think about it, Sarah. It makes perfect sense. You live in Boston, you're only here a few times a year. We're family. We can appreciate the house, really live in it. Enjoy it to its full potential. Enjoy it to its full potential." Meaning, live rent-free in a house I paid to renovate while I went back to my own mortgage and cram city apartment. I looked from Mark to Mom to Dad. Dad was avoiding eye contact. Mom's smile was starting to waver. Mark was grinning that infuriating self-satisfied grin. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Honey, we just thought," Mom started. I cut her off. "You thought what? That because I paid for this ridiculous gold-plated monstrosity, I somehow forfeited my right to even visit? That I should just hand it over to Mark and Lisa so they can appreciate it?" Mark actually chuckled. "Don't be so dramatic, Sarah. It's just practical. And Lisa's been wanting a bigger kitchen and Amy needs a proper playroom." Amy. Their 5-year-old. Boiled rotten and probably already had more toys than an actual toy store. "Practical for who, Mark?" I snapped, finally losing my cool. "Practical for you to live rent-free in a house I paid for? Practical for you to continue leeching off Mom and Dad while I pick up the pieces?" The air in the aspirational living room crackled with tension. Mom gasped. Dad flinched. Even Mark's smug grin faltered, just for a second. "Sarah, that's uncalled for," Mom said, her voice trembling slightly. "Mark is your brother. My brother who thinks gold faucets are aspirational and living in my parents' basement is a lifestyle choice," I shot back, standing up, my hands shaking. "You know what? You want Mark and Lisa to have the house? Fine. They can have it. Keep the gold. Keep the marble. Keep the damn jacuzzi. You can all live happily ever after in your statement house. I grabbed my purse, slung my coat over my arm. But don't expect another dime from me. Not for the mortgage, not for the utilities, and definitely not for any more aspirational art pieces. I turned to leave, walking toward the front door, the ridiculous chandelier glinting mockingly above me. Sarah, where are you going? Mom called after me, her voice rising in panic. Going back to my own life, Mom. The one I actually paid for myself, I said without turning back. I slammed the front door behind me, the sound echoing in the suddenly silent, gold-plated foyer. Sighed, the crisp fall air felt like a welcome slap in the face. I stood on the porch, breathing deeply, trying to calm the roaring in my ears. My hands were still shaking. I felt a mix of fury, hurt, and, strangely, relief. Relief that it was finally out in the open. Relief that I had finally said no. I pulled out my phone and hailed a ride back to the airport. As I waited, the texts started rolling in. First from Mom. Sarah, honey, please come back. We didn't mean to upset you. Then from Mark. Seriously? Overreact much? It's just a house. Then a group text from both parents. Sarah, this is Thanksgiving. Don't ruin the holiday. I ignored them all. What was there to say? They wanted aspirational? Fine. Let them aspire to pay for it themselves. The ride to the airport was a blur. I booked the next flight back to Boston, ignoring the holiday surge pricing. Money was the least of my worries right now. My dignity, my sanity, those were priceless. Back in my own apartment in Boston, late that night, the city lights twinkling outside my window, I finally felt like I could breathe again. Quiet was luxurious in its own way. No gold faucets. No marble floors. Just peace. Calls and texts continued for days, escalating from pleading to guilt-tripping to outright anger. Mark even tried to reason with me. Look, Sarah, we can work something out. Maybe you can chip in a little for the mortgage since it's technically your renovation. Chip in. After I had paid for the whole damn thing. The audacity was breathtaking. My parents were equally clueless. Sarah, everyone's upset. Amy is asking for you. It's Thanksgiving. Family is important. Family. That word felt like a punch in the gut. What did they even know about family? Was family about exploiting each other? About taking and never giving back? About valuing appearances over actual connection? I finally replied to my parents, one short email. The renovation is yours. The house is yours. Mark and Lisa can move in. Just please don't contact me again. And then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked their numbers. All of them. Mom, Dad, Mark. Even Lisa, just in case. Silence. Blissful, liberating silence. Weeks turned into months. Life in Boston went back to normal, or as normal as it gets in my architect world. Work, projects, deadlines, coffee with friends, weekend hikes. Slowly, the anger started to fade, replaced by a kind of weary acceptance. I didn't hear anything from my family. Not a peep. I assumed they were all happily ensconced in their gold-plated paradise, appreciating the hell out of it. Then, one random Tuesday in February, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something, curiosity maybe, made me pick up. Hello? A hesitant voice on the other end. Sarah, it's Dad. My heart clenched, but I stayed silent, waiting. Sarah, honey, can we talk? His voice sounded different, subdued, lacking its usual mild-mannered cheerfulness. About what, Dad? I asked, my tone neutral, guarded. He sighed, a long, weary sigh. About everything, Sarah. About the house. About us. Against my better judgment, against every instinct screaming at me to hang up and run, I listened. And what he told me, well, it wasn't exactly an apology. Not in the way I probably deserved. But it was something. Crack in the facade. Apparently, living in a gold-plated fantasy wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Mark and Lisa had moved in, all right. And within weeks, the aspirational house had become a battleground. Lisa hated the gold faucets, too flashy, she said. Mark complained about the cold, minimalist furniture, something about back pain. And my parents? They were just caught in the middle. Miserable. The bills, of course, were astronomical. The jacuzzi tub? A plumbing nightmare. The gold faucets? Ironically, already tarnishing. And the statement chandelier? Mom hated dusting it. But the real issue, Dad said, wasn't the house itself. It was Mark and Lisa. Living with them 24/7 had apparently revealed them in all their glory. Mark's vision translated into constant demands, endless complaints, and zero financial contribution. Lisa, it turned out, was even more high maintenance than the gold fixtures. And Amy? Amy was running wild, treating the aspirational house like her personal playground. "It's chaos, Sarah," Dad admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother and we're exhausted. And Mark, well, he's not helping." He paused. Then he said something that actually made me stop and listen. "Sarah, we were wrong. About the renovation. About everything. We let ourselves get carried away. We focused on the wrong things. Wrong things. Like gold faucets and statement pieces. Instead of, actual family." "We miss you, Sarah," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "We miss you." I didn't say anything for a long moment. Just let his words hang in the air. Miss me? Did they really? Or did they just miss my checkbook? "Dad," I said finally, my voice still guarded. "I appreciate you calling. But things are different now. The house? Their problem. Your problem. Not mine anymore. I know, honey. I know. We wanted you to know we understand. Maybe someday." His voice trailed off. "Maybe," I echoed softly. And then, gently, I hung up. Maybe someday. Maybe they would understand. Maybe they would learn. Maybe, just maybe, they'd start valuing the things that actually mattered. Not gold faucets and marble floors, but real connection, real family, not aspirational, but real. I looked around my own small, slightly cluttered, but perfectly comfortable apartment. No gold in sight. Just books, plants, and the soft glow of city lights. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of something hopeful. Not for them, maybe not even for us, but for myself. For my own life, built on my own terms. On my own foundation. Solid, real, and definitely not gold-plated. And that, I realized, was more valuable than any statement house could ever be. Did you enjoy the story? Want more? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more wild and unhinged Reddit stories. Your support means a lot and helps my channel grow.